People always ask, are there good aliens and bad aliens? Yes, some are good, some are bad, just like there's good humans and bad humans. Good and evil permeate the entire universe. And one thing I found through going through biblical studies, I'm going to go here to the next slide, is there are records of UFOs in the Bible, okay? Now, of course, I can't list them all here and talk about them all here all at once, but there are descriptions of UFOs described in the Bible. And so, keep it in mind, I say, Bible translators as far back as the 1600s described what they thought were flying vehicles. They didn't use the words as we use today because those words didn't actually exist. But I'm describing here what is in the Bible. There are 70 verses which describe clouds as vehicles, 15 verses which describe pillars, 10 describing dwellings, 160 verses on lights and fire as vehicles. There are 17 verses describing spinning wheels, 22 verses describing dark and shining objects. There are 37 verses of various objects in the Bible described as UFOs, and they are flying furnaces, burning bushes, eagles' wings, smokes, stars, and other objects that the ancient authors used to describe the fleet of the vehicles of the Elohim. The fleet of the vehicle of the Elohim. The Elohim is a plural term. In the Bible, it means gods, plural with an S. You see, in the Bible, where you see the word God, singular, there's a little bit of a mistake that happened by accident on purpose. They forgot the S. If you go back and translate the words back into Aramaic and even further back, you discover that the word is actually gods. In all these ancient scriptures and papyruses that they took from all these caves as they began to culminate this into a canonized book, I'm talking about the Council of Nicaea who did this, they began to erase the S when they copied and translated over the book because they wanted to usher in monotheism, a one God religion, a one God mindset. But these records had clearly stated that there were multiple gods, and some of that kind of escaped into the biblical text where it says, I am a jealous God. There'll be no other gods but me. Well, that's actually words from Amun-Ra, aka Marduk in the Bible in the Hebrew Torah. So those were his words. It's not the creator of the universe speaking. A lot of times we think it's the creator of the universe speaking in this book. It's not. It's these Anunnaki Atlantean people that are actually speaking. Virtually all religions believe in aliens, okay? Virtually all religions believe in aliens. What do I mean by that? If you look deep into the origins of religion, you'll find that they're all based on aliens, right? So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at some of the evidence. Christianity, 2.1 billion people worship Jesus, right? And he said unto them, you are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world, not from earth. If you look at the definition of alien, it means not from earth or from another country. Islam, 1.3 billion believe that the Prophet Muhammad was meditating in a cave of Hira by himself when the angel Jibreel, who said he was not from earth in the text, descended and came down to him and told him to recite the Iqra, which is the word of God. Again, not from earth, alien. Hinduism, 851 Hindus hold that the cosmos is populated by a numerous amount of deities and spiritual beings, gods and goddesses or divas, who actually influence the world, who interact with humans. Again, not from earth, alien. Buddhism, 375 million. Certain branches of the larger Buddhist tradition, including the Mahayana, include a variety of gods and goddesses not from earth. And of course, Mormons, 13.5 million people worship that. The angel Moroni, who was said he was not from earth in the text, is in Mormonism, an angel that visited Joseph Smith on numerous occasions, beginning on September 21st, 1823. According to Smith, the angel was the guardian of the golden plates, which the Latter-day Saints believe were the source material for the Book of Mormon. Buried in a hill near Smith's home, this angel named Moroni came out of the sky, met up with them, and showed them where to get these tablets from under the ground, and that's how they created the entire religion. But if you see the trend here, we're talking about being engaged by beings that are not from earth. There's no text that I've read over the years now. I've read over 1,000 scriptures, papyruses, cylinder scrolls, books, biblical texts, all the Quran, everything I've read. Not one book is specifically talking about the creator of the universe. Now, there's several books that come pretty close, but they're not religious books or spiritual books. They are science books, quantum physics. Quantum physics is the closest thing I found to proving the existence of a God, which I believe does exist. I'm not an atheist. So I believe that we're living in a creation because the quantum physics and quantum mechanics formulas actually prove that we're living in a created universe. But there is no other text that exists outside of science that's really talking about the true actual creator. We're talking about text authored by human beings with human hands. And actually the problem with that is, if I go to the first person in this row and whisper in her ear and tell her to carry that story and whisper in the next ear, the next ear, the next ear, until it comes all the way back around to this gentleman here, by the time it gets to him and I go say, what did they say? What did I say? The story is going to be different. That's the problem. The story is not going to be the same. Why do I do the Emerald Tablets? Because it's one of the only texts that exists where the author was the actual person himself. Thoth authored them and wrote it himself. He didn't use a scribe. One thing you notice in all these other texts, there were scribes. There were people writing down stuff for other people, sometimes even hundreds, sometimes thousands of years after the events occurred. Like the Bible was written from 100 AD to 900 AD. Well, Jesus lived 2,000 years prior, so nobody was walking next to him going, say that one more time, Jesus? I'm just saying. And Jesus was a real person. He existed. His name wasn't Jesus. His name was Yeshua. That's his real name, Yeshua. When we go to Egypt, we take people to the place where he lived in Egypt, in Africa. Yes, Egypt is in Africa, in case you didn't know. Some people think it's in Arabia. No, it's in Africa. Jesus lived in Egypt, and the house and the bed he slept in is still there till this very day. It's a shrine. Why was he there? At the age of 12, he disappears out of the Bible. Where does he go? Where does Jesus go? He disappears from the age of 12 to 32. He ends up in Egypt, which is located in Africa, and he ends up in there studying the Egyptian mysteries of who? Thoth the Atlantean. Where do I find this information? It's in the Gospel of the Holy 12. By accident, on purpose, left out of the biblical text. Just didn't make it in. We just couldn't put this in, guys. This kind of important information, we just couldn't put it in. He then goes to Tibet to learn Reiki healing, Qigong, energy moving through the body, chakras and all that good stuff, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he moved down into India, where he learned the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back to Egypt. And then from there, the Bible picks up, I call my son, God is speaking, I call my son out of Egypt. And he shows up in Jerusalem riding on the back of a donkey at the age of 32. That's where the Bible picks back up the missing pieces, right? And so, yes, he was a real person, a real teacher. But I have this funny meme. Virtually all religions worship and believe in aliens, and it's a fact. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's an absolute fact. We're worshiping something that's not of this world, whether it's multidimensional, whether it is dimensional, it doesn't matter. This is a fact that we can't escape. Where do a lot of this information come from? The Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation is one of the greatest texts that exist that we have access to. This text is located in the British Museum, and I've seen these tablets in person. You guys just happen to be in Britain, so you can go check them out, okay? And they tell an incredible story of not only of the creation of our solar system, they tell an incredible story of the creation of Earth itself as an actual planet, which matches up with astrophysical data. It matches. How would they know how Earth formed that many millions of years ago? Where did that knowledge come from? How did they know about the separation of waters from waters, how the asteroid belt was formed and everything else that exists in our solar system? It's in these ancient tablets. It then goes into the point where there's actual people that are advanced beings that find a way to get to Earth to create a breakaway civilization. Can you imagine writing in cuneiform? Let me go to that page. Can you imagine writing in cuneiform tablets, which takes a lot of time to do, as you can see, using a tiny wooden stylus and etching it into wet clay, and then letting it bake or dry, and just coming up with a sci-fi story like that? You know, I just want to I want to write a story about aliens coming and, building a city here on Earth. Somebody just cracks out a wet piece of clay and starts digging into it. I don't think that happened. What I think happened was these people were writing down exactly what they were told and what they saw. This is probably as close as you're going to get to any actual truth that exists on this planet, which is why I dig into these ancient tablets like there's nobody's business. And guess what? Every single person in here can read these tablets now. You don't need to be an expert in translation, because these tablets were translated long before Zechariah Sitchin was even born. Zechariah Sitchin didn't translate any of these tablets, as the conspiracy goes. He was a great researcher, and in his books, he quoted these tablets and many others. He never said he translated anything. These were translated in the 1800s, long before he even was born. So what does that mean? This text is ancient. Not only that, you can go to the UCLA, CDLI online cuneiform digital library, and you can get all the stone tablets off the virtual shelf and drop them into the translator and read it all for yourself. You don't even need me anymore. And that's online. UCLA, CDLI, Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative. Say that fast 10 times and see if you can hang, okay? So let's move into the pyramids a little bit before we get into these images. The Great Pyramid is encoded with super advanced knowledge, pi, phi, and so many other incredible mathematical formulas, advanced knowledge. So when you look into these pyramids, it's a time capsule. It's a time capsule that's describing and telling us, for the age we're living in now, who was here in ancient times and how advanced they were. Because at the time that this information was encoded into the pyramid, which I'm going to go over real quick, I did a little bit of it last year, nobody at the time could even conceive or understand anything that was being encoded. They couldn't even understand basic mathematics. Most people were actually illiterate back then. Most people were illiterate. And if you were just a worker person, a person that had to go, work in the fields or work for your master, which is what happened back then as well. I mean, slavery is ancient. Slavery is not nothing new. Well, you wouldn't even walk around with clothes on in ancient Egypt because they wanted to make sure you weren't stealing anything from the pharaoh. So people didn't have any idea of this advanced mathematical knowledge. They were just trying to survive day by day, literally. Who built the Great Pyramid? Thoth built the Great Pyramid. Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. He says, build it out of the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. And it has remained through these ages. It hasn't gone down yet. It's solid. In it, I builded my knowledge of magic science, which means advanced technology, so that it might be here when I return from Amenti. Amenti is the halls where he goes to send his bodies to rejuvenate, while he transfers his consciousness, according to him, into another body to walk amongst men unlike a man. Interesting stuff to write in 38,000-year-old text. His soul roaming will be free to incarnate and dwell amongst men in one form or another. This guy claims to have had advanced technology, which I believe the Serapeum in Saqqara, Egypt, is his father's halls of Amenti. Has anybody here been to the Serapeum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Serapeum, an amazing sight to see. Underground, underneath the sands of Giza, there is a huge chamber that goes on for about a half a mile, and it's carved perfectly out of the stone, and it has these alcoves, these halls going all the way down, and each hall has a 60, 70-ton sarcophagus, but it's not really a sarcophagus. It's a stone box that has never had a body in it. Each one is perfectly clean and pristine, and you can climb inside of them if you give the priest a couple dollars, he'll let you climb inside of one. But just to give you an idea how big they are, I'm 6'4". When I stand inside of them, my head is beneath the top of the box. The box is taller than me from the inside. So when I get inside, the box is up here. I've got to climb all the way back out again. The lids weigh 30, 40 tons each. But if you check the ancient text, in some way they were technological. They could not have been moved into those alcoves. They had to be manifested there or teleported there because there's no way to fit anything that large and navigate it through those thin halls to get them into those spots. It's an incredible sight to see. If you ever have a chance to go to Egypt, we're going again in a few more weeks. Mohammed Ibrahim is here actually today as well. He's speaking this weekend. He's one of our main guides, and I'll be speaking there as well. We take 70 people every single year down to Egypt to see these amazing sights. So here I am inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid and standing out in front. This is a really old picture. But that box right there that I'm standing in front of, that box is not a sarcophagus as they would want to teach you and tell you. That box that I'm standing there with my hand on, my right hand is on that box is the same exact dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant. And that's what used to sit inside of that box. The story of Moses is not exactly what the biblical text has told you. When you really dig into the tablets, you can kind of piece together a much bigger and broader story. It appears from my personal hypothesis, I will say, that Pharaoh Akhenaten most likely was closer to the actual Moses. He was ushering in monotheism, a one-God religion. He was worshiping Aten, the sun disk, also known as Amun-Ra, who told him to go around and deface every statue in the kingdom because I'm the only God and I'm a jealous God. Sound familiar? That's in the Bible. They copied it right into the Bible. But anyway, the pyramid over time had broken slightly in terms of the amount of power it was generating. It's a power generator. They added this granite stone box later, and they put the Ark of the Covenant in it to make a finishing piece to continue to generate electricity. You can see the corner that's broken, that huge chunk. If you can see the far side of the room, there's a gigantic hole or indentation in the granite where that chunk of granite flew off and smashed into the wall because an enormous amount of power came through this box at one point, proving again energy inside this chamber. The energy would travel to the apex and go around. The obelisk would capture that wireless energy and transmit it to jets, which would then be transmitted through electrical cables so they can have light, gold electroplating, and everything else. It's ancient technology that we have here. This is ancient stuff. We had to plug this stuff in. My computer's got to be plugged in or it's going to die. Back then, they used wireless electricity. Here I am in the King's Chamber again. So you can see that the speed of light in a vacuum is, right there, 299,792,458 meters per second. And the geographic coordinates for the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid is 299,792,458. What is that? How is that possible that this can be encoded? Why would the speed of light be encoded into the Great Pyramid? Now, people say, well, meters per second, we just discovered meters. No, actually not. We actually didn't just discover meters. Okay, let me show you why. If you go and look, you'll find that all of these school books are actually wrong and need to be corrected because we've actually known for a very long time about these stone tablets discovered with Proto-Sumerian cuneiform. Now, Sumerian is where? Mesopotamia, which is where now? Iraq. Guess where these Proto-Sumerian cuneiform tablets were discovered in the world? They were discovered in Mexico by the Pyramid of the Sun. What in the world are Sumerian tablets doing in Mexico? And these aren't the only ones. There were some Indian chief that was dug up from his burial chamber in America, and where we live over there, across the pond, right? Where he had Sumerian tablets in his pocket. Now, what's interesting about these tablets that's the ancient metric system. So the metric system is ancient. It's not new. Stop. What they taught you in school, you got to forget about it. Wipe your brain clean and start fresh. This is the original discovery of the metric system here, which came out of Mexico, which originated where? From Sumerian cuneiform tablets. This is why I study the tablets, because they're as close as you can possibly get to the accurate truth. You know how much Wikipedia doesn't like to post this kind of information? This has its own Wikipedia page, and they actually told the truth about this, which is kind of crazy. Wikipedia, they're kind of false, fake news a lot of times. You can't pass a college exam on Wikipedia. You can't. You do that, you're in trouble. So let's look at a couple of these measurements here, all right? One of the most amazing anomalies is right here on Earth, embedded constants that are in the Great Pyramid. You can calculate the tropical year or calendar year. The length of the base side is 9,131 pyramid inches, measured at the mean socket level, or 365.24 pyramid cubits. So what happens is when you actually measure the base of the pyramid, you actually come up with the 365 days in a year. You know how many days are actually in the year, okay? That's pretty crazy. The perimeter of the base divided by 100 equals 365 as well. You can calculate the tropical year. The length of the antechamber used as the diameter of the circle produces a circumference of 365, accurate to within 6 digits. The tropical year, the ratio of the length of the Grand Gallery to the solid diagonal of the King's Chamber times 100 equals the number of days in a tropical year. They're trying to let us know this pyramid is also a calendar. And the sidereal year is the length of the antechamber of the King's Chamber times pi. You get the length of a sidereal year, which is 116.26471 pyramid inches. All this is encoded into the construction and much, much more. I'm going to go over a few more real quick. Now, what this means is you need to have a sophisticated, for us, it would be a sophisticated computer. And then you would type into it, I want to put all these calculations into my construction. Boom, 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 boom. And then if you think everything you want, your whole wish list is in this computer. And then you say, now spit out my blueprint so I can have my construction workers build it. That's what had to happen. We're talking about pre-thinking, advanced and foreknowledge before building, not just throwing blocks together. There wasn't a bunch of slaves building the pyramids, okay? Did human beings build the pyramids? Yes. Under the blueprint from these advanced Atlantean people. I mean, these people aren't going to go out there and get their hands dirty. They're going to teach, and there's many records of them teaching construction techniques to humans and us doing the work. And in Egypt, we even have the records of people getting broken bones and broken arms and broken legs, and payroll records have been discovered on Giza in these ancient type temples and sites. We know that people actually got paid to work on the pyramids. So the pyramids were not, I repeat, were not built by slaves. The mean distance to the sun can be calculated. Half the length of the diagonal of the base times 10 to the 6th power is the average distance to the sun. Think about that for a minute. The mean distance to the sun, the height of the pyramid times 10 to the 9th power represents the mean radius of the Earth's orbit around the sun. So we can calculate the Earth's orbit around the sun and the distance of the Earth from that. This is crazy stuff. The sun's radius, twice the perimeter of the bottom of the granite coffer times 10 to the 8th is the sun's mean radius. And the Earth's polar radius, that means the radius from pole to pole, we can calculate that. The sacred cubit times 10 to the 7th power is the polar radius of the Earth. And Earth's polar radius, the pyramid embodies a scale ratio of 1 by 43,200. So that means if I took the Great Pyramid and I scaled it up 43,200 times, it will fit directly inside of the planet Earth, and each point will touch one part of the inside of the Earth. So the pyramid itself is a representation of the planet that we live on, and it represents a sphere, not flat.